Andrea, how's it going?
Oh, you decided to.
I figured out how I could. Yes, I was thinking about it, and I figured out that I could actually pull it off. I might as well jump into this. So Andrea Collis today is joining us. My name is Tanisha Comers. I am a certified financial planner and the founder and president of KFLA, Canada's first financial literacy agency. And today we are talking to Andrea Collis, who started in the insurance industry in 1989, which is disturbingly close to another number that's important to me.
Hey, I was 5. I'm going with I was 5.
You are a stellar pillar of the industry. Clearly, you've been there for a while. She's got a business admin and general insurance diploma that she received early on, and she went on to become it's a chartered insurance professional.
Right, through the Insurance Bureau of Canada.
Tell me what that means.
It's a series of post-secondary courses, the typical university course. There's about 12 of them in all different kinds of insurances, from risk management to liability insurance to business interruption. So it's just effectively a university.
Cool.
12 of them for a particular designation.
Neat. Well, that's good to know. So it sounds like an important one to have then if you're in this industry, hey?
Well, it is. It is. It's really important.
You bought your own business as of 2008. You've been running and you've got a number of staff. Yeah. I believe you said right now your team is all women.
We are.
Yeah, funny enough. And you can insure basically any physical asset. And your current specialty is professional liability. So that's going to go into a little bit what we're going to talk about today is just kind of general physical assets like cars and houses and buildings and condo corporations to sort of more professional insurances. We're going to run the gamut. So I happen to be in the bath, if you haven't noticed.
I have. I'm jealous.
I know, right?
I should have done that.
You could have, but you were the one who wanted to be professional. No, I asked Andrea how she relaxes after a tough day or during COVID, and she told me that she takes a bubble bath. So I have run myself the first bath in years, and here I am to.
But there's no bubbles, though.
Oh wait, I put in a bath bomb, and I was hoping that it would bubble, but it did not. So I'm sorry. How can you work with your broker? What sort of tips do you have for the average business owner, the average professional, the average person who owns a couple properties, the average person with a car that wants to do themselves well with their insurance?
Yeah. So tip number 1 is definitely make sure you are talking to your broker. If the last time we had your revenue was quite high and your revenue has come down quite a bit, we might be in a position to negotiate that for you. If you've made changes to the types of assets you've had and you've sold things off, which again is quite common in the last number of years, businesses have been selling things off. We can't know unless you tell us. We can't adjust things. We can't look at increasing deductibles and that type of thing. So the other thing is don't procrastinate, right? Things are so busy. Insurers are so busy. Get back to your broker when they reach out to you and do it as soon as you can. Make sure that you're giving them a complete picture. Yeah. And to a certain extent, like I said, people are being really creative and trying to figure out, how do I make my business survive? So we might be having increased service offerings or thinking of going into different areas. Signing new contracts. Pick up the phone, talk to your broker, talk to them about it. So some examples might be, landscapers suddenly wanting to go into snow removal. Well, not all insurers want to do snow removal because there's lots of, right? So if you want to try and do that, well, suddenly you could find yourself without insurance, right?
And that was something that really struck me is if you are making changes to your business, your property, etc., in all cases, talk to your insurer because you don't want to, number one, you don't want to be surprised and lose your insurance altogether. And number 2, there may actually be ways for you to reduce your costs. So there's 2 important reasons for you to basically call your broker if you're doing anything at all different.
Exactly. Before you sign your contracts, right? This way we can help you. You'd be surprised the number of people who tell me they didn't look at their contract. They just signed it because they really want the business.
Surprised at all to hear that people don't read their contracts. That's actually one of the services that I offer, literally is I tell my clients, just send me your contracts, let me read them for you.
We would much rather not be surprised after the fact. It's one thing, and that way too, if you know about it ahead of time, you can negotiate with the new client that you have.
Absolutely.
You can negotiate with the landlord, right?
Yeah.
If you know ahead. Leave us lots of time. Things are taking far longer than would be normal. So for example, one underwriter told me last week she gets 150 new requests to quote every single day.
Every day.
Every single day, and she's one person in that office.
The COVID stuff, what are you seeing? What are the most common questions? How are people dealing with that?
Yeah, there's a range. Probably the biggest question we're getting, or we got at the start of it, was business interruption.
Yeah.
I have a business interruption claim. So the most heart-wrenching too as well, because that's been the most difficult to explain, that people, while you are purchasing business interruption insurance, it doesn't apply in the pandemic. For most people, there's a few exceptions out there, but most of us, the business interruption follows a property loss. So if you have a fire or you get broken into, the things happen in your space.
So that's what you were saying about how you guys can insure basically any physical property or any physical asset. So this whole pandemic, as much as it is technically a business interruption, you can't actually insure that because the insurance company can't insure events like.
Right. The catastrophe. I mean, there are certain exceptions, right? So if you ran trade shows and bought event cancellation insurance,
Gotcha.
then that would likely have pandemic insurance, but each insurer policy is slightly different. But in a pandemic, your business in itself, your assets haven't been affected.
Right. Yeah, effectively, basically everything is still there. It's just a government shutdown. So that's just not something that an insurance company can cover.
Yeah, well, and when we think about it, if they were going to insure everyone for that, we wouldn't have insurance companies left, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what other common questions are you getting right now, Andrea?
A lot's pertaining to revenue. Of course, business insurance is based on revenue. And so when your insurance was due, you may have been able to affect that right away. But for the most part, insurers are not giving us discounts in the middle of the year. But for sure, come the end of the year, getting ready for next year, we'll be asking for your updated revenue and accounting for those types of things next year.
So there is the possibility to perhaps reduce some expenses going forward, but not in the middle of your contract year, only at the end of your contract year.
Most insurers are not doing anything midterm. There may be an exception out there, right?
Yeah.
Not every insurer is the same. But what a lot of them are doing though, is they have been giving some premium relief, not by waiving premium, but by deferring it, right? So eventually you'll have to pay it back, but for 3 or 4 months, they're accepting the fact that not everybody's in a position to pay their insurance right now.
Right.
They may not everybody's doing that voluntarily. A lot of business policies have what's called a declaration of emergency endorsement. So they're not actually allowed to cancel your policy for non-payment during an emergency.
Right.
Yeah, if the policies have that endorsement. Yeah.
Right. So, and because our governments have declared states of public emergency provincially, these provisions are helping protect business owners to keep their insurance contracts in place. Now, we've talked a little bit about business owners, but what about the individuals? Is that, does that provision apply there too? Because obviously everyone has been hit by this emergency. So
I think that the national government has talked to all of the insurers, and the insurers if you are making an effort to contact them and let them know the kind of position that you're in, and that most insurers are being really flexible about that. Further, in a lot of cases, there's been some press about auto rebates. So a lot of the auto insurers are recognizing the fact that most of us have just stayed home. And even me, I might have come back to my office, but I live 5 kilometers from my house.
Right,
But
right.
I'm not going out to all the rest of my appointments, and I'm not, we've all kind of hunkered down to try and stay safe. And so a lot of the insurers are giving auto discounts for multiple months to accommodate and recognize those reduced kilometers.
So I'm going to assume that obviously nobody's giving, like no insurance company is giving this away out of the goodness of their heart. You have to ask for it, right?
I would say so. You have to
Okay.
ask
Yeah,
for it.
right. Yeah, usually they won't just give you an extension.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, they're doing everything that they can, right? There's a lot of publicity around it. There's
Certainly.
websites. They're trying to automate it as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
One of the insurers I was talking to told me they were hiring 500 temporary people just to process all these auto endorsements so that people's premiums dropped right away and they got rebates, right?
Wow.
So they're incurring costs to do that. Yeah.
That's amazing. That,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but they're not, you're right. You do need to talk to your broker.
Yes. Yeah. You said something really cool that caught my interest. The rental income provision. What is that?
Oh, well, typically for rental properties, the coverage can be relatively simple. So you're going to insure your building, you're going to insure your liability, your appliances, your contents. But there's a little business interruption clause we can put on there for replacing your rental income in the event that something has happened. So a fire happens and you're still required to pay your mortgage, but your tenant can't live there and they're not going to continue to pay rent. So in that case, the business interruption would step in and pay the loss of rental income for you.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of
It's
that as
really
being an option.
inexpensive.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I can see. Is that something that's easy to add onto a policy if somebody already has a rental property?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's move forward and talk about these increasing rates, because I know that's another thing that everyone's panicked about. And actually, my own personal example is that my condo home insurance has gone up by 45% this year. And I was like, yikes. It's obviously, I think dollar-wise, $30-40, but 45% is a lot.
Rates are increasing across the board for sure. And it's really a complicated, multifaceted issue. It's affecting both businesses and individuals. And it's really complex and there's lots of reasons for it. So numbers of losses, catastrophes, increased cost in settling claims, the hard market, recessions, and even drop in investment incomes for the insurers. And in addition to all that, we see increased crime. So in a pandemic and in recessions, people are, there's more vandalisms happening, damages to vehicles, damages to businesses, all those types of things. So claims are going up, cost of settling claims are going up, catastrophes in this province are unbelievable.
What do you mean? I mean, obviously, yeah, the catastrophes have been pretty ridiculous between, just the recent hailstorms we've had in the last 2 weeks, for example, to the fires, the floods, et cetera, within the last decade. Claims are increasing, but what a lot of people, I know what they say is I haven't made any claims. Like my claims aren't increasing. Why are my premiums going up? So I thought this would be a really great opportunity for us to get into how pooling works and the fact that insurance is basically a massive pool of money that all comes into it, and then these disasters happen.
Right. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So the whole principle of insurance is that the losses of the quote few are spread out amongst the many, right?
Right.
However, the losses are increasing. If we think about auto claims, the number of auto claims are up, the cost to settle claims are up, the lawsuits are up.
Why is the cost to settle up? What does that mean?
Oh, there's an increased cost. There's jokes about vehicles that you can just bump something and it's $2,500 or $5,000 in your car to settle it, right? And when our economy isn't doing well, then people put in smaller claims, right? If we're struggling financially, we may be more willing to look at putting in $1,000 or a $2,000 claim than we did in the past when things were going well for us financially. So even higher numbers of smaller claims come in, and that's literally what happens in recessions too. And in recessions, again, there's a lot more lawsuits happening as well. So
yeah,
again,
people are angrier. Everyone's a little bit more on edge. The value of the dollar is higher. There's more at stake generally. Yeah, you're right. People are less comfortable. It makes sense. Yeah,
right.
I hadn't thought of that.
So yeah, so we've got a little bit of a perfect storm with a recession, all the catastrophes, the cost of auto claims going up, and so while we as individuals are able to say, look, I haven't put in a claim in my car or my house in 20, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? We have to look at it though. That hailstorm last a couple of weeks ago, what did that hit? 20,000 homes in one quadrant, right?
Yeah, times 25 grand each, easy.
Right? Yeah. And if the average home insurance in the province of Alberta is kind of $800 to $1,200, and you have a $30,000 hail claim on your house, that's a lot of years. And so we can say, not only is it around the siding, but it's the roof and it's the cars, and they're big, massive losses. And it's really easy to say, I haven't had a claim, but that money still has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, the whole idea of protecting your neighbor. So let's talk about the hard market, because I know you're so excited to. You've mentioned it a few times, and I had to ask you last time, what is a hard market? Obviously we've got rates increasing, but what does that mean? Yes.
So a hard market is a time where the insurers, there's a higher demand for insurance, but a lower supply of coverage. So there's less insurers willing to provide coverage, and there's more underwriting criteria being applied. The insurers are more difficult when you're dealing with anybody who's had claims, or if something's unusual, drivers with tickets and accidents. So during a hard market, the underwriters they're more difficult, and insurance companies have insurers as well. And they also are being hit by the catastrophes, right? And so the insurance companies, insurers are saying we need rate increases, and we're no longer willing to rate these types of risks either. We don't want you to be writing this many buildings, for example. So most insurers, if you sit tight, they're going to give you smaller rate increases, and people are up in arms over that, right? But I have to say, over the last 15 years, there's been a lot of years of no rate increases. There's been a lot of years of even decreases.
So this is where the hard market comes in, is that things have been soft for a while. There's been flexibility, there's been negotiation room, whereas now the insurance companies are coming back to the public and saying, look, we don't have wiggle room.
True. Our last hard market was probably the early 2000s.
Right? Oh, wow. Yeah.
So rates have been relatively stagnant for a while.
Yeah.
And if you think again about the investment incomes, insurance companies make lots of money in investment income.
Of course.
So if our investment returns are down, that also means that they can't sustain higher numbers of claims without the premiums going up, right?
Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining me in the bath tonight.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. I have to say, I've never had anybody else in this bathtub with me before. No, this was really lovely, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me. I think that you shared some really important details that are applicable, honestly.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You're very welcome. I've got wrinkled hands by now.
Yeah.
You should totally do it. Just put on a shirt. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, fine. I guess I could do that.